Modupe Ajibola, he's not a stranger to the house. It's just that, he's in the diaspora. And so we don't see each other every week. But why don't you call in? That's another aspect. Why don't you call in? We have a whole cache of diasporans that call in, but great to have you back home.
Pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
You're here to participate in the election by way of observer status.
Observer.
You're going to be observing.
Yes, I'm just observing.
That's
a private citizen observing the election in Nigeria. It's important that we all Nigerians partake in this process.
Indeed. And speaking about, people in the diaspora and also foreigners, this morning somebody sent to my, WhatsApp account a little video clip of President Obama, speaking to Nigerians on the election and saying all the things that world leaders do say, reminding us that he hears we have a saying in Nigeria that to keep Nigeria one is a task that must be done. Well, those are good handles, and so Obama was in this little, I think it was a 90-second clip or so. He was saying that you just have to be fair. Talking about the elections, it has to be fair, it has to be credible, and all of those kind of things that we well know ourselves. Okay. Now, I know that one of the things that you want to talk about, or shall I say segments, is like the challenges before the next administration.
Yes, sir.
That's really it,
yes,
the next
sir.
administration. It could be anybody. It could be any of the parties that we hear here, but here we are now, and you are thinking ahead to the challenges before the next administration. So what you got?
I'm excited. You see, the beauty of, first of all, thank you again for having me, because you're a super interviewer, and I always enjoyed the session with you. Yeah. So one of the things that I've always, hoped for Nigeria is the day where the powers that be will be challenged enough on the vision that both the indigenes and the intellectual community have. Because we have two groups in Nigeria. There's the indigenous Nigerians, which by and large, one could argue they're the undereducated folks, the rural Nigeria, and then the so-called intellectual Nigerians that have come of age, and some of them are abroad and here. 80% of the country are indigenous, are more so in that rural factor, are more so undereducated, underinformed, and so, and they call them Ijile. I want Ijile.
There you go.
There's like 80% of them.
Oh, I forgot to mention it. How did I forget? Modupe Ajibola is a US-based technology expert, and he's also a political affairs analyst. Just because I was speaking about
no pleasure.
It could have been Germany, it could have been UK.
That's true.
So I just wanted to say, US-based technology expert.
I appreciate you. So for me, and I'll give a background. I'm glad you gave that background. We've built a platform in the US to allow voters participate in elections better. And I would say how that connects to the challenge I see here. Because the typical challenge in any community is, how do you hold the federal, the state, and the local government accountable for the roles they all play? How? How do you, in a system where all these three entities are always fighting for power, in our case, is more centralized, which means the federal government in Nigeria is the one that actually drives most of the, and he who pays the piper mostly dictates the tune, correct? So now the states also want quite a bit of control away from the local government, and the local government have proven themselves in Nigeria to be unappreciated by just about everybody. Nobody trusts the local government, nobody believes in the local government. In fact, the biggest election outrage that should be happening should be a local government election. Should not be about federal. It should be who is responsible for what happens directly to the people. But so the challenge...
I beg your pardon. When you say, and there's a sense in which we can understand, when you say that nobody really trusts the local government, perhaps they're not giving the full value, they're not allowed to perform in the way that they should be able to perform. Because as you're about to say, I'm sure, there are other commentators who have said to us that, you know what, guys...
It may very well not be that they're underperforming. It could very well be that they're under-communicating. Yeah, which means the information about their performance is not reaching their constituents.
That's one.
So, and
they don't have the autonomy that they require.
So you can
getting their funds, their finances directly. Yeah, I'll agree with you if you say the states are not really enamored of that idea by their behavior.
You're not wrong. Any which way we dissect it, it shouldn't matter the autonomy. It should matter the results. If we measure the results, let's forget the antics of who pays who doesn't pay who. Some funds at some point hit the local government. Can the local government just show what was done with it and highlight it to the constituency so that the constituency can know, at least with the little we got, this is what we did with it?
So this is one of the challenges that you feel the following administrations are going to have to address. How you make all the sectors, the different layers of government, accountable.
Accountable. And let me say how this all connects. You just said before the show the amount of misinformation the internet provides. Even on my way to Nigeria, I was told several times, don't you go there. They're going, there's this, there's crisis, there's accidents, there's fuel scarcity, every imaginable excuse to concern you as a citizen to go back home. But you get here and you realize, wait a minute, there's strife, there's challenges.
There are all those things.
But people are still smiling, people are still dancing, people are still working, people are still...
Don't remind me of Fela Anikulapo of blessed memory, suffering and smiling.
That's all right. No. So not to take away from the suffering. I'm not saying the smiling means they're not suffering. But I am saying that it is not the kind of pictures that are painted from anecdotal stories.
That's right.
Is so bad and egregious that local government, state government, and federal should be ahead of these kinds of things. But in Nigeria, the challenge we face is those local government folks feel like the truth would set them free. The truth would eventually come out somewhere. People would know that this is not what's happening. No. You have to get ahead of the stories. That is your job. In fact, your job as government officials has suddenly changed from just servicing the people to informing the people more so than even serving them. Because if you're serving them without informing them and they do not know about your services, it is of no use because you're going to be penalized for the lack of knowledge, for the ignorance. So we have...
That's one area where you think we could do a lot better going into the next...
So we talked about...
Is it at all levels? Because I don't know if you... Okay.
Must make sure that the citizens of the country understand where his limitations lie. This is my role, and this is what I would do for your states. Your states, they need to show to you what they're doing for you. Your local governments, they need to demonstrate to you what they need to do for you. Now, what we will do from the federal level is hold all of them accountable.
One. And then two, you also, I'm sure, realize that there are constitutional divisions as to what is whose job.
It's there in the Constitution.
It is
there already.
Yes.
It's not an issue. It's a lack of, that's why I said it's lack of information, transparency, accountability. That's all it is. The laws are there because the information is there. So the question is, how are you going to get your citizens to be informed about this? Number one, you got to get that population we're talking about that are in that demographic of literacy, below literacy. You got to get them out of that literacy burden.
To education.
To education.
Is one of the
it's huge. Now, a lot of Nigerians are educated, more so than you can imagine, actually. A lot of them have high school degrees. In fact, the literacy rate in Nigeria is about 77% now, which of the adults. But the difference is that about 16% go to college. About 67% high school, they stop, boom. They're going into the marketplace. Think about that for a minute.
But even those that go to university that you're speaking about, as you know, there's still the problem of jobs.
Yes.
So that's one other big thing.
I was getting to
because
that.
all those that are going for this coveted higher education, they have to find entrepreneurship so that you don't begin to look for a salaried job the way your parents might have. You've got to come out thinking of, actually, maybe I need to be thinking about being an employer of labor myself.
So, yes and no.
Okay.
And I'll take it from the U.S. So in the U.S., to become an entrepreneur, in fact, to even go to graduate school in some cases, they require you to go get some field experience, which means go get a job.
Graduate school is different. I mean, I thought you were talking about the first degree level.
I'm even saying,
okay.
There's a reason I brought that up.
Okay.
Because there's certain milestones of exposure you need to have as an individual to start a business. If you do not have those exposures, you're liable to make a lot of errors. And those errors are very costly, not just costly to the government, costly to the people that you hired. So it's important that individuals don't just go from college or high school into becoming employers, but have an exposure can help in this aspect also. I'm glad you brought that up. So what they can help do is allow the established companies, right, to be benefactors of some type of, give back or whatever you want to call it, for hiring and mentorship programs, internship, where government is saying, if you can hire this many people, you may not have the real job for them, but they're under your system learning how things work because they're shadowing you. Even for that shadowing effort and they're under your guidance, we will make sure that we reduce the tax burden you have. We'll make sure we reduce certain things. This way, all these young people are part of some institution.
I hear you. And I wonder if you've heard, because as you were saying what you were just saying, especially engaging with the private sector, Ashwaji Bola Ahmed Tinubu actually had a meeting with the organized private sector where these kind of matters and issues, he's addressed these issues, knowing them, as you are indicating to me, to be as crucial as indeed they are.
I don't believe what is lacking in Nigeria is understanding or even these issues I'm talking about. I think everybody quite understands them. What's lacking is the instruments to manage them. Okay. They need instruments to manage them. Okay. If you're going to do this kinds of thing, you know, something as simple as me flying from the United States, and there's an immigration form that is required for you to fill out before you depart and come here. Immunization or some, actually it's about COVID. And the website they tell you to go to is no longer working, but the airline requires it from you to have. So you as a citizen, you're there arguing with the American people and saying, what do you mean I can't travel? It's my country, I'm going back to it. They're like, well, your country said you cannot come unless you fill this form. The website is down though, well, that's not, go talk to your country. And then you're looking at yourself like, who do I talk to? Who do I talk to? Who is my country? And then you call your dad or your mom or somebody, and you're like, you know, hey, country.
You know, let me help you a bit there, because when you just said what you just said in relation to the subject matter you're speaking on, maybe you've heard about the e-Naira thing.
Yes.
The website isn't working. Even though they're doing their best, you know, that, because I'm sure you might touch on it. It's all about cashlessness in Nigeria.
Cashlessness, we definitely have to talk about that.
But the e-Naira and all that kind of thing, even though I got a text, you know, that means they have some of my details. I got a text saying that, okay, this is how you are, this is your password, this, that. Out of the blue, maybe I filled this one time, I couldn't remember. And I said, okay, you've sent me this, let me do my own part. I tried to access it, and it was failed. In other words, the website still has a few kinks that need to be ironed out.
And that's, look,
so we need to be patient.
We need to be patient, and that happens. That technology, you know, that happens. However, it is not excusable for no scapegoats, for there not to be any scapegoat in this incident. This is where the accountability comes in. Like, we put you in charge of it with this budget.
You mean like holding somebody responsible?
Somebody has to be responsible.
This is the difficult part here, and if you were to want to major on that, I'll understand. This whole matter about, can we determine who is responsible, who do we hold liable here? Not because we're sadists and we like punishing people, but can we just agree that this guy or this person, you know, was lacking, and we need to do something about it? Now, that's not something that I feel we like doing very much around here.
Nobody likes it. But when you have governing bodies appointing folks that are non-professionals to take charge of projects that are beyond their own imagination, they don't...
You think that happens from time to time?
I'm confident it happens, but I will not call names. That is why I'm mostly impressed with how Lagos has functioned.
I was going to bring Lagos up.
Lagos has functioned in a way. I had worked years back with Fashola on a contract, you know, some years back to help the universities deploy access points. I'd invented this technology, and the way the project went seamlessly, where we got the contract, we got the approval, and the bottleneck now came when we were dealing with civil servants and all those things, which happens. But still, the energy with which the commissioner was fighting to get the civil servants to get us to get it done showed that these people cared about results, because somebody was going to deal with him.
Someone was going to ask.
Deal with the commissioner if he didn't deliver. So I saw that, and to me, If that can be scaled across the country,
Okay.
in many ways, it's a plus. However, that's the practical aspect of it. It goes back to what I started with, which is the information part of it. You still have to communicate what you're doing and how you're doing it. That experience that I have, if I'm not testifying about it, nobody knows that Lagos was doing such a functional apparatus. No average citizen in the streets can relate to that experience. So you got to find a way to make it relatable to the people. So the arrogance that some of our leadership have to do away with after the election is important. When I say arrogance, I mean the sense that people still need you to speak to them as if to say what their concerns are matters. This is where I think some of our leaders are lacking. And some have actually captured it. But your capturing of people's pain does not make you qualified to solve them always. Right? You can capture all the grievances of everybody. It doesn't mean you're able to solve it. So we need experience. Those are the experience with connecting dots between the rural and the private sector, similar to the things they've done in Lagos and in other places. We also need people that understand the grievances of the youth, right? So I can't see, in these elections that are coming up, I can't see...
The grievances or the special needs. I mean, well, maybe there's a sense in which the two could mean the same in certain aspects.
They are upset. They're upset.
Beyond the matter of the needs of the youth, there's also the grievance issue. Talk to me a bit about that.
You see, the youths cannot even see their needs right now. They see lack. They don't see needs.
Too many of
because
them
if you sit down, and every time I sat down with the youth, I said, give me 3 things you need right now that'll solve your problem. They don't know what that is. The Bible, they say, we need more education. I said, no, I mean what you need. What do you mean we need more education? It's like, oh, you're educated, but telling me, oh, you're speaking for other people, which means you're carrying on talking points of everybody else, as opposed to daily thinking about what, if they give me what I need right now, if I had 5 seconds with an investor, and he comes to me and says, I'm going to invest in you if you tell me your idea, what would be that idea? Give it to me right now. Okay. So a lot of the...
What kind of responses are you getting?
I'm not getting positive responses. They've not thought through it. The salvation is still in their mind to come from somewhere else. So that's why I said that the transition between college and professionalism needs to go through mentorship.
Okay, one moment. Let me take Lukman, who's calling in from Ghana, I believe. Lukman, good morning. Lukman, are you there?
Yeah, good morning, Uncle.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, Engineer Jibola.
Good morning.
I'm so happy with what Engineer Jibola is saying. When you go to UK, whatever you need will be sought out by council. In Nigeria, we always focus on federal government. And the local government, we know that the main tiers of government to every citizen is local government. If I wake up in Surrey, where I came from, where I'm supposed to go, if I'm having any problem, it's local government. If the local government, if the problem is beyond local government chairman, he needs to report to the state government, and the state government needs to come and solve that problem. No, on unemployment of the youth, as of today, how many state governments are creating jobs? During the regional time, what Awolowo did in western part of Nigeria is what we still achieve today. Why the regional cannot, even if a state cannot do that, why the regional cannot come together and go into agriculture? Agriculture can consume a lot of unemployment when we go on mechanized farming. And all those things will attract people. I think we need to be serious, and our people need to focus on state rather than the 70% of Nigerian problem is at the state level. 30% is with the federal government. So our Nigerians should focus and should vote wisely during the state government election.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Good word. Good word, Lukman. Okay. Yeah. So Mr. Lukman is absolutely correct. We talked about this, and look, the local government is not. I'm not trying to bastardize the local government. You know, if I had to take an exam that was never graded, I would always give myself a pass.
Oh, okay. That's where the accountability thing comes in.
That's where it comes in.
You have to have this sense. So, and you think that's, maybe I'm now beginning to catch on. You're saying that this is what is going to be needed going forward.
That's the instrument that you need
going forward.
That instrument is not about
Where people
some
give an account of their
statistical
stewardship.
data that only you and I can read. It has to be data that is transparent enough for the common man to understand.
Okay.
That he sees it. Oh, àgbàdo, wọn àgbàdo ti grow ní gan ní àdúgbò yìí pé òun là ń tà jù. You know what I'm saying? If I want to have something to do with it, I can go talk to my local government. I can be part of such a thing, and they can show me that we've employed this.
Because you have the knowledge.
You have the knowledge,
Which was passed
the awareness,
to you
yes,
by way of information.
Now, you see how this ecosystem will work. That now begins to give way to the value for media also, because media is also part of that information. But the local governments have a budget to deal with you guys to get the information out there.
Okay.
So.
1 second, please. Again, people seem to like what's coming, so they're calling in. Good morning, Mr. Yakub in Dokwemu.
Good morning. Good morning, Shivjori, and then good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Shivjori, I totally agree with your guest.
Okay.
I said it all. Shivjori, I could see something scrolling on the screen here that Supreme Court has adjourned the CBN case to February 22. Actually, where are we going from this stage? A station whereby the central bank is so powerful to the extent that it does not obey the highest cost of the land. Now, and then the people are beginning to, now, Nigerian youth are beginning to protest and to destroy something. They will say Nigerian citizens are not doing right. Now, in this time, to extend it.
Okay. I'm sorry, Yakub. The line, we got what you started off with, and he was complaining. Yeah. We had a senior advocate of Nigeria here yesterday to help us understand some of these things. And you heard the complaint is that now, the long and short of it is that the highest court in the land is not being obeyed. Even, I think there are other publications where the governor of Central Bank was saying that there was no need to adjust the cutoff date and all of that. It does look like they want to push this thing through, but it looks like they're good from a point of view of the law. But the understanding in the public space is still, this whole thing is suspect.
It's not even just there. For me, I would say, this thing is above my pay grade. Yeah. That's another thing that I think most Nigerians should get better at. There's a lane that we all specialize in. And I think we're better served when we speak to those lanes better than when we just act as if.
I hear what you're saying. Correct. That, in fact, thank you for not just wading into it any old house. Say, look, because this is what the lawyer that we had, the senior lawyer that we had in, was explaining yesterday, that there are so many things that appear upside down or stupid to the ordinary man walking the streets, but from the point of view of the law, those things.
But it goes back with what you and I said, which is the communication gap between this federal state they need before it happens.
I get you.
This issue.
Sorry to interrupt you, because as the lawyer was speaking yesterday, there are people who were saying that, you know what, I'm now better informed. And
there you go.
I now have more respect for a given situation. But Reverend Dominic, good morning to you, sir, and thank you for holding on. Go ahead now.
Good morning, Yore. Good morning to your guest.
Good morning.
Good morning.
When I listen to your guest, Yore, a wonderful and intelligent young man. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
If I feel like we are in that nation, in that dream nation we are looking for, all he discussed here works in a dream nation. Expect in Imo State. When I saw the environment, it was full of weeds. So I was asking the chairman, why can't some staff here or workers clear this, environment and make it clean? He said we don't have money to give contracts to clean that environment. I said, sir, you need a contractor to clean grass? Does it make sense? Because everything here is contract. In CCs, we have what you call PW something. This is, I don't know what to call it now, but it's a work in the Ministry of
back in the day, it used to be PWD or something like that.
Yeah, PWD, sir.
Public Works Department.
You don't need to wait for a road to break down totally for somebody to pass it. Since we left for that ID concept, we are what you are today. So what your guest is saying, it means in ID nation that these ideas work. But we are in on ID nation. Let me say this without any somebody to insult me. The lawyer in the house yesterday, I want to ask him a question.
Okay, Babatunde Ogala.
Yes, it clarifies nothing. It stood on the head. I want to tell Ogala yesterday, do you belong to APC that on the side of Lawal? Because there's two APC. Or do you belong to APC that on the side of Bola Tinubu? The APC of the Bola Tinubu wants a good nation. The APC on the side of Lawal, who went to court, when Lawal has surrendered in Afi court, and the APC on the side of Lawal, who is dragging Nigeria to nothing, went to court and said that even though Lawal did not contest in primary, it is our choice. Where does that happen? Where is internal democracy? So I want to ask Ogala, which law did he read?
I don't want to go back to yesterday, but Tunde Ogala explained it a bit, and it seemed, like you and I, Reverend Dominic, will say the law is often an ass. The lawyers themselves say so, because they are working within the narrow confines of the law. But I don't want to go too much back there. Ogala SAN felt that, he understands perhaps why the rest of the people might not understand it, but that the court was in order, even though Lawan hadn't gone to court himself. It was the party that went to court on his behalf, saying that they had actually conducted, a primary at one time. But as I said, I understand you. I was there. Ogala was the person who sort of said that, look, let me explain it a bit to you. So I guess that's that. But Reverend Dominic, did you want to, I think you've already said that you sort of align with a lot of things that Modupe Ajibola is saying. I think he's gone.
Yeah. No, so again, another frustrated Nigerian that is a valuable citizen to this country. And you can see the passion. The way they come at this is with passion, which means it's no surprise that when we go to other countries, we thrive, we excel. It's no surprise.
That guy that just called in, Reverend Dominic, he's passionate in his support for the ruling party. But of recent, he has become quite angry and has also voiced this anger.
It is
that I'm not about to quit, but I wanted to say pissed. I am angry. I'm angry at the way the ruling party is conducting itself.
You see, whether it's for the ruling party or for Obi or for whoever he is for, there's passion everywhere is what I'm telling you.
Okay.
Everyone is feeling it. So the next government, since that's what we're talking about, will be remiss not to address these passions that are coming from all angles. To think that you have to, the next phase of our governmentship should be based on competency, not loyalty. Not loyalty. You see, this loyalty thing, it may seem appropriate at some point, but it's not sustainable.
But
because
it doesn't have to be a combination of the two.
There's no need for loyalty, because the people would have your back when you have their back. You don't need the people you appoint to be the one you trust when the people put you there and you're serving them. The only thing you need is the people that put you there to know what you are doing and to know that I'm going to hold them when they mess up.
And you would have...
They will continue to support you. If I go to the airport that is dysfunctional and I look for aviation minister or whatever, and I say, this airport has been dysfunctional for so long, this is the entrance into Nigeria, I need it to be better than this. And I've said that again and again. Nobody yields to that. It becomes an embarrassment for who? The ruling party. It doesn't become an embarrassment for...
okay. You know what? Let's take a break now.
Yes.
And we'll be right back. Please stay with us.
On the 25th of February, Nigerians will go to the polls to elect President Muhammadu Buhari's successor, as well as the 109 senators and 360 members of the House of Representatives who will make up the 10th National Assembly. On the 11th of March, 28 out of 36 states will choose their next executive governors. And the 993 members of the state houses of assembly across the country will be decided. With over 93 million registered voters, Nigeria is on course for 7 cycles of uninterrupted general elections since return of democracy in 1999. Join me on TVC News for the countdown to the February 20 for all the updates and analysis you need to know. Every weekday at 6 p.m.
Doubt and fear does.
Okay, then welcome back. And Engineer Modupe Ajibola, US-based technology expert, is our guest this morning. He's also very interested in public affairs, political affairs. He's an analyst in that regard. And he's home to participate in the election as an observer. It's not possible for him to vote. He would have loved to, I'm sure, but where are you based? What state are you based in?
Texas.
You're in Texas, yes. There. You know, apart from the steaks that you people are eating, your giant steaks, you can't, you couldn't register from Texas. But, you know, as we
I have my NIN.
You have your NIN.
Yes.
That's one thing that nobody can deny any Nigerian.
You know, we can't, you know.
And so, well, what Modupe has been, you know, talking about is what he thinks, you know, should be the concern of the administration that follows that of PMB, President Muhammadu Buhari, and where things can be made a lot better. He's highlighted, he's talked about education, he's also talked about communication, especially communicating what is being done so that people know, and if people take it for granted that you will communicate with them effectively, when they don't hear anything, then they will assume that it's because there's nothing going on. And so that is where...
So I'm glad you brought it back home. Education, information, and then the last that I'll talk about mostly is infrastructure. Infrastructure is a big aspect of what we have now found the rest of the world.
Infrastructure, that's the one place where they're giving us some small credit, or in fact, more than small. No, nobody can take the infrastructural development away from Nigeria. But you probably have something to say about that.
Exactly.
Okay, let me bring in Martins, who has called in from Bagada. And then when you hear his input, you take that. Sure. Good morning, Martins.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the young man there. He's actually a wonderful person.
Engineer Modupe Ajibola. Yes.
Yes. But my reason of calling is to please seek for the support of the Nigerian media houses.
Okay.
In the case of the 3 governors from the northern states against the federal government on the issue of the old Naira notes and the new Naira notes. When the matter first came up, the Supreme Court gave an interim order that the old Naira notes should still be a legal tender pending the time this matter before them, the substantive suit, will be concluded. However, I realize that the way the Nigerian media houses are reporting the issue is quite different from what the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court said, pending the time this matter will be concluded, that old Naira note should continue to be a legal tender. That is, status quo ante bellum must be maintained. That is the pronouncement of the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Now,
I just wanted us to be accurate. Sorry, sir. I wanted us to be accurate. What the Supreme Court did is to have restrained the federal government and all its agencies.
That's where I'm coming.
Okay. Continue, sir. Continue, sir.
When the Supreme Court gave that order, the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Federation came on Arise Television to inform the nation and the entire world that the federal government is complying with the order of the Supreme Court. That is the final lead. Once the spokesperson for the federal government on issue of law has said that the federal government is complying with that order of the Supreme Court, which says that the money will continue to be a legal tender pending the determination of the substantive suit, then the media should be able to report this very properly.
Okay.
And not be interpreting it in different ways and confusing the citizenry.
I hear what you're saying.
So,
Indeed.
please, I am pleading with the Nigerian press So please report it in accordance with the way it's supposed to be, so that the citizenry will understand and know their rights.
Okay. Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Martins, for calling in and bringing up that particular point. And you know, he does have a point, because depending on how many media sources that you read, you find that there are variations on how it is being reported, and also understandings. For instance, it is the Council of State that had suggested, and that's the word, suggested to the central bank that if there was going to be a difficulty in providing sufficient quantity of Naira notes, then it might want to consider, it wasn't ordered, it might want to consider using the old notes alongside the new ones. Now, the president, the central bank governor, even the attorney just come out and that has been said that's taken different interpretations. I think Emefiele, the governor of central bank, has said that there is no need to extend the expiry date that they had already established. In spite of the Supreme Court making its pronouncements, in spite of the Council of State making its suggestions.
Look,
and this is what is angering a lot of people.
Information.
The suffering continues.
Information. Information dissemination. The media has a big role in it. The media, this man recognized it. The media should be doing a good job to, and when the media fails at reporting the thing accurately, you guys should also what? Be held accountable. This accountability is not just for government, it's for everybody. And when you're not, when there's no instruments to hold each other, I don't say they should come arrest you, I'm saying you guys should hold each other accountable and write redactions and do whatever you have to do. But if Nigerians are not doing this, the federal government cannot do anything for any one of us if we as citizens are not demanding this kinds of alignment.
Mazi Okoroafo, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Sayuri. Good morning, my brother in the studio.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, we are happy to see people like you, at least from time to time, people like you coming to tell Nigerians what they're supposed to know because of our level of education. Yes, because it's good. That is sometimes when they finish their primary school, secondary school, university, the same village, the same town, they don't go outside. When somebody comes from outside and say the word, they treat them like him. So I thank my brother, please. You have gone outside, you have seen what is happening there, you are bringing the knowledge to Nigerians. I say to educate people within this environment to know exactly what they are supposed to know about them. Now, the issue is this. Election is around the corner. But what I want to find out from the federal government of Nigeria, as of yesterday, people that went to bank pushed them to central bank. And the same central bank pushed them back to bank. FHS run to east and west and come back. Now, where are we now?
Yes. Yes.
Central bank said by 17th. Now, Sayori, my brother in the studio, I will advise you that I will take what are you suggesting to Nigeria? Many people would like to go to their village, their local government to vote. Now, how would they transport themselves to the village? You see, I don't know how Nigerians reason.
Yes.
And the government officials. People are going to their village. People left their local government to the urban area to work in the state level, maybe on transfer or what is it. They want to go back to their village. So they recycle it. How would they go? I don't know.
Yeah,
now, let me give you an example. Listen very well. Everyone should listen very well.
So all right then.
In Tokyo.
Thank you for calling in, Mazi Okoroafo. Thank you very much, sir.
He's absolutely correct. You see, when I talked about infrastructure, most people think it's just buildings and stuff like that. It's also connectivity between networks of things that work together. AI is going to be a big part of it in the future. We have
Artificial intelligence.
Yes, we have to jump on that. But what this gentleman is talking about is what we said, where, look, how can CBN have, I'm going to dive into it just a little bit from a technology side, because I'm a technology guy. There's this thing we call risk assessment, right? Vulnerability in your ideas and your system. CBN should have, I don't know if they did, should have worked with this so-called local governments to have a risk assessment of this transition and have a backup plan and a redundancy system, a buffer, to say, hey, if something fails in the channel of what we're doing here, local government has some trade by barter.
Country school level of education would know it. And there are experts in the central bank. We have experts all over in this country. whether it is the Army, whether it is the Air Force, whether it is Central Bank, whether it is the MBA, we have experts. They know what you've just said, and yet at this late stage, they decided that this is the time to revive the whole long-standing plan that we want to be a cashless society. These few weeks to the election, it's a good time for us to start withdrawing currency. So people can't understand
I don't think
what is
anyone
going on.
will call this a success. I don't even think the folks that envisioned it
Well,
will
the
call it a
central bank
success.
governor is.
Well,
he did say
he-
that the situation, he was speaking to, I think, the diplomatic community, that the situation was calming down.
Yeah, so
he was reported like that.
So I'm sure that at some point he will take some kind of umbrage. It will take some kind of what's the word? He would take some kind of visibility study of what's really happening, and at some point he would
he has
speak
taken
accordingly.
it and he has said that the situation is calming down.
I think he still has
He's told
time.
us
He
that,
still
he's
has
told the
time.
public that
Let's
the
give him
situation
time.
is calming
Let's
down.
give him time. Look, I'm saying that because of benefit of doubt you have
You're
to
also
give.
being, you know, diplomatic in your speech.
Yeah.
Cut them some slack.
Cut them
because
some-
I was cutting them some slack that there's no way you tell me that those guys in central bank don't know what they're doing. There's no way you tell me.
Yeah,
but there must be some other pressure for them
don't be
to
so
have
sure.
messed it
By
up
the way,
like this.
don't be so sure of that either.
Okay, I hear you.
There's incompetency in every system.
Okay.
So
I hear you.
They have to be able to weed that
It's
out
just
on
that
their side too. So
it's just that I would have been very surprised to. You're probably right. But
And
can you
since
imagine
nobody's
such a
being
specialist place as the central bank? How can you have incompetency there?
just simple. When people don't begin to upgrade their knowledge, they don't expose themselves to several. There's so many ways in
Let me
competency.
take Elder Adebanjo calling in from. Good morning, Elder Adebanjo.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Yori. and
Good
to your
morning, sir.
guest.
Thank you for calling
And
in.
to your- Thank you so much. You see, let me just simply put this.
Yes.
We're talking about challenges before the next administration.
Yes.
Please, let's have strong institutions rather than strong individuals. When we have strong institutions rather than strong individuals, most of these things will fall into place. Where my brother came from the U.S., we have strong institutions, not strong individuals. And he mentioned something about loyalty. Let's forget about loyalty and deal more on competency so that most of these things will quietly fall into place. Good morning.
Good morning.
Fantastic.
Short and sweet.
Look,
short, sharp, and sweet.
That man summarized what we've been talking about here. Institutions, and I love the way he put it together, because the truth of it is that's what we're really talking about. But how can an institution be strong? Is the instrument is what I'm trying to get at. Because you see, you can't tell the government in Nigeria to just go do it. We are experienced in doing it. So we can lend our experience. The experience is literally technology. There's no way around it. You have to measure performance and everything you do before you can understand whether you're passing or failing a test. But if there's no measuring instruments, you're always going to consider yourself a pass.
Well, I hope either the presidential candidates themselves are listening to this, or their presidential campaign councils or representatives are listening to this, because that's what they need to hear. That's what they need to know.
I agree.
But also, Elder Adebanjo, who called in speaking about the dire need in Nigeria is for strong individuals rather than strong.
No, it says strong institutions.
Strong institutions rather than strong individuals.
This is very correct.
That's what commentators have been saying for ages.
The challenge,
it's not new.
I'll say one thing though. The challenge with that assessment, I believe in what he said, but I've seen a challenge with it. Just being on ground.
Yes.
It goes back to what we said about the indigenous population. There's so many people in the rural areas.
This is our way.
They're so ingrained in culture.
Yeah.
And we are so overexposed, for that matter, that we tend to build our mind, our policy, our ideology based on Western civilization.
Indeed.
And those folks here are saying, we don't even want most of those things. We just want our simple lives with some jobs, right? So there's a bridge that needs to be crossed.
The cashless
somehow.
society, for instance, very ideal. We understand it. But where we are at now, there are many people who don't use the banking system.
Yeah, there are.
There's no way you dodge it.
Oh, I've experienced that firsthand.
There's no way you dodge it. All those people are in a jam right now. And these are things that you would have thought about before going into this program and that you wanted to go into it. Why weeks to the election is when you're starting. Why didn't you kick
But
that
the
particular can down the road?
the pressure has to remain at the local government level. Look, you cannot scream at somebody miles away and have an impact. You just can't. They can't hear. They can just switch off the TV and you're good. They're good to go. But you can scream at your local government until he starts screaming at who he can scream out, and the screaming goes up and up and up. So the screaming has to start at local government levels.
Okay, Mr. George, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you for
calling.
calling.
And good morning to your guest. I appreciate his exposure and very sound suggestions. But let me first of all totally agree with the Supreme Court order.
Yes. I think that was Martins, if I'm not mistaken.
Martins, his observation is correct. But what he didn't know is that the media we have in Nigeria today are themselves part of the conflict. Many have taken positions in, political positions against what they should stand for as a check for the society, for the sake of the society. Right. So the way a media sees it is the way they are seeing it, the way their principals want them to see it. So you have to understand that one. The other thing I want to point out is the observation or the suggestion made by your speaker there on local governments. I think that Nigeria adopted a system that we are not ripe for. The executive presidency, our society is not ripe for it, but that is what we are practicing. Take the CBN case, for example. He talked about leadership not being able to drive processes. The central bank governor is an individual. And a court, the highest court of the land says, do one thing. And he said, I'm not going to do it. That's where the president should have come in and said, no, you must do the right thing. If that is not the case, then we will be having situations that we're having in the country today. That goes to also answer his question about airports or an infrastructure decaying and nobody is held accountable. That is one of the reasons why I am supporting Bola Tinubu. This is the first time we are going to experience a president that has done it before at a state level, where he holds people accountable, where there is monitoring. This man, when he was governor of Lagos State, I'm aware that he will take up his phone and call a mechanic to get a secondary opinion about what his commissioners are bringing to him. And they will always debate it. Not necessarily the way he had brought it, but when they debate it, they come to a consensus, and that is what is implemented. The implementation is done, and the checks were there. That is why Lagos State is still able to sustain that practice up to today. So this is the first time we are seeing somebody who will not be cocooned by people that do not seem to have the interest of the generality of Nigerians around him.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well said. Yeah. I'll say two things in response to that. Everything he said makes sense. You would never have me argue that Lagos is a great benchmark that Nigeria very well could leverage across the board. But you will hear me argue, however, that, again, folks that are trying to lead the federal government just need to be very aware that there's a thing called social media, right? And that social media cannot be ignored for too long because it's growing and its influence is growing. And messages have to be communicated real time and people have to get ahead of it. Otherwise, narratives are misguided. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of misinformation about even records of folks. I've said that on this election, I'm very proud of Nigeria because we put some candidates on the table that I'm very proud of. Mm-hmm. I'm very proud of the fact that we put an experienced candidate in running one of the fastest growing and sustainable cities in Nigeria on the table. Okay. And that is a beautiful thing. That means if we can even scale that across the board.
So the quality of the candidates
is
improving.
Yeah. Yes, it's improving. It's improving.
So that's a plus.
That's a plus.
Well, even though there's a lot more work to be done. Let me squeeze in our last caller, Mukhtar, calling in from Kano. Good morning to you, sir.
Hello, good morning, Uncle Yori. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for calling in.
I have an observation of three things.
Okay.
I have an observation of three things. One is that most of our leaders are not sincere to the nation.
Okay.
They say things that they never implement. They say things that they want to convince people to vote for them. But there is no sincerity in their own hearts. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, and the Naira redesign. You cannot do a single policy without consultations. Consultations should cut across the nation to hear the views of the people you govern. That's number two. Number three, my disappointment is that the Supreme Court should have done something to Mr. Emefiele, because that's the highest court. You cannot give directives to somebody and say he will not do it, and you allow him to go free. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. The thing I was going to say next, I'd like to cover some aspects of that.
Because
quick.
in closing now, please summarize.
So on the other side is the folks that capture the grievances of the youth. I keep calling it grievances, but the challenges the youths are facing. It's real. It's here in Nigeria, unemployment and things that is in other states. Maybe not as much as...
Mukhtar spoke about our insincerity, that people are not sincere.
Call it what you may. Well, there's this saying we have in America that perception is reality. If people can perceive, they need to manage it well, because when you hear a guy like one of the candidates, the way they talk, some people may wonder, are they even able to run something? But they've run instruments that have worked. But because perception is not managed, some people think blah. And on the other side, folks think because, if someone's capturing the imagination of people, you can't take that for granted. It's needed.
Perception, you're balancing the fact that when Mukhtar in Kano says that insincerity, a lack of sincerity, Naira design, no consultation and all of that, you're saying that, well, perception, maybe they didn't manage it. Maybe there needed to have been more information as to how this all came about.
You have to have information, but the information has to be consistent. It cannot be wrong. If we have a group of people that come around and say, hey, we have data constantly telling us the performance of what's going on with our city, right? We don't need to turn to our governor anymore. We don't need to turn to our local government, because we can go to the source of the information and check ourselves.
We've completely run out of time. And so that's a fine place to put it. I want to thank you very much, Modupe Ajibola, an engineer, US-based technology expert and political affairs analyst. Thank you very much, and hope you have a good time at home.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I'm Yori.
Zaɓe mai zaman kanta ta ƙasa ce ta bullo da na'urar tantance masu kaɗa ƙuri'a mai suna IVED domin taimaka hukumar wajen haɗa rijistar masu kaɗa ƙuri'a ta hanyar ci gaba da rijistar masu kaɗa ƙuri'a CVR. Hakanan na'urar na tabbatar da cewa an adana bayanan da aka tattara daga kowane ɗan ƙasa don yin hukunci a yayin da katin zaɓensa na dindindin ya ɓace ko kuma ya lalace. Ku tuna cewa wanda suka karɓi katin zaɓensu na dindindin ne kawai za su iya kaɗa ƙuri'a ranar zaɓe. Domin yi wa kanku rijista, za ku iya ziyartar kowace cibiyar yin rijistar katin zaɓe da hukumar zaɓen ta ƙasa INEC ta amince da su, ko kuma ka fara rajistar ta yanar gizo ta hanyar ziyartar www.cbr.inecnigeria.org. Cike duk bayanan da aka bukata a kan fam ɗin da aka bayar, sannan kuma ka nemi zuwa ofishin hukumar zaɓe mafi kusa da kai domin kammalawa ta hanyar yin amfani da na'urar IVED. A matsayinka na ɗan Najeriya, don tabbatar da cewa za ka iya kaɗa ƙuri'a a lokacin zaɓe, ya zama wajibi ka samu katin zaɓenka na dindindin wato